I went my whole life thinking the more layers in lasagna, the better. Turns out 2 sheets is all you need. When you say lasagna is your favorite, you're not telling the whole truth. You don't mean the whole thing, you mean the corner, the crispy edge. That's the part you actually want. And because of that, a smart restaurant in Queens built an entire lasagna that's nothing but the crispy edge. This is the Rollo's 2-sheet lasagna. Now this lasagna has everything a traditional lasagna from Bologna would have. The only difference is it's made with 2 sheets, made fresh to order and in a wood-fired oven. And lucky for us, we got the best wood-fired oven on the market, thanks to our sponsor today, Gauzy. Now we have some prep to do, but this is a brand spanking new Dome XL, freshly baked if you will. Now we do have a few things to prep, but we do have to do something very important because this is a brand spanking new wood-fired oven. We need to cure it. Curing it is just heating it up at a nice, modest temperature. Super easy. And since this is a hybrid wood-fired oven, we've got the option to use wood and propane. So to save wood and be efficient, I'm gonna start with propane. And just like a gas grill, we can use a knob. When you do this, you likely hear some popping, some cracking, all that's normal. We're gonna get this to about 400 degrees, let this cook at 400 degrees for about an hour. Now that that's cooking, we got a few minutes to discuss how to prep the 3 main ingredients for this recipe. And we started our prep yesterday so we can just fly through this outside, enjoy our time in the sun. For now, we need to prep 3 things: green pasta dough, Bolognese sauce, and bechamel. And we do the thing that takes the longest first, which is the Bolognese. So here I've got carrot, celery, onion, mirepoix, classic start to a Bolognese. About 2 parts onion to 1 part celery and 1 part carrot. Just gonna peel my carrot. It's the fast way to do it. And everything's going into a food processor. So we don't really need to be precious about how we chop it. We just want to chop it up a little bit more just to help the food processor out. It's not a magic piece of machinery. Starts every vegetable at the same size, helps process them evenly. Take the carrot, cut it into about thirds. Celery. Not traditional. If you want to throw some garlic, you could do so. Get the lid on, and then we're just gonna start pulsing. Now, we don't want to pulse it into like a pureed mixture. Just trying to create a similar texture to the texture of the ground beef, so it melts in. That's the texture right there. Get that into a bowl. Cleaned it out real quick, and then traditional is we add a little pancetta to the meat. We got about 1/3 of a pound. It's in these chunks, and again, we're going to process it to be the same consistency as the vegetables and the ground beef. Get that into a bowl. We're gonna render that out. That's gonna be the flavor base we cook the vegetables in. Rest of the ingredients. We've got some chicken stock, milk, triple concentrated tomato paste, and of course we need beef. Now, I've never done this before, but I wanted to try it. Instead of getting regular beef, I bought the meatball mix. So it's ground beef, ground pork, and ground veal. So it's basically 1 part pork to 2 parts beef. I wanna see if we get some nice flavor, some depths, a little bit of a nuanced difference than just using beef. And then we need some wine. You could do red wine, of course, is traditional, but right now I have a bottle of white wine open. We're ready to get going. First thing we're gonna do is get a big, heavy Dutch oven on the stove, preheating on high heat, cover the bottom with some olive oil. Once that oil is super duper hot, then we're gonna go ahead and add in our meats. You wanna make sure you season it generously with salt, and then we patiently allow the moisture to release in the meat, then for it to move on to the second stage, which is for that moisture to evaporate out of the pan. And then the third and final stage is when the meat and fat are all that's left in the pan, and that fat begins to fry the meat. That caramelization developing inside of the pan is that depth of flavor, and that's what we're looking to do here. Now we can just take a slotted spoon and pull out the meat for the time being. Then we go in with the pancetta. Now that beef fat and that pork fat are gonna start to kind of blend with each other. It's getting browned. Now we can add in our vegetables. The next phase is to repeat the same process as we did with the meat with the vegetables. Now we're starting to see some browning in the pan again. No moisture left in the vegetables. Now we can add the beef back in. Mix it into the vegetables, get it all happy together. And you see how the vegetables sort of blend into the meat? That's the idea. And then now what we're gonna do is see the browning, we're gonna supercharge it with some more depth of flavor with tomato paste. I basically add the whole tube and then we mix it in. We need to cook out the raw flavor. Once we brown that pan back up, we're gonna clean it up one last time with some of our wine. Again, red or white will work. Let it evaporate and then we're gonna go in with the stock. Then we're gonna go in with some milk, maybe a cup or two. Then we're just gonna bring it up to a boil, drop it down to the simmer, move it off to the side burner, and just simmer it on super low for hours. Probably 3-4 hours, but the longer the better. Now while that's cooking in the background, it's the perfect time to start working on our pasta dough. Now, if you go anywhere in Bologna and you order a lasagna, you're gonna get sheets of green dough, not that regular lasagna you're used to in America. Everything's lasagna verde. So here's what we're gonna do. First off, I'm gonna take a blender, add 60 grams of spinach. To that, we're gonna add 60 grams of whole egg. Did I say 60? I meant 225 grams, which is almost always about 5 or 6 eggs. I'm at 250. I'm not gonna really fuss with it. I'm just gonna adjust with extra flour if needed. Gonna add an ice cube or two. We keep it nice and cold so the heat from the blender doesn't sort of cook the egg or the spinach. We wanna maintain like a really beautiful bright green. You can feel it's still cold, it's nice, it's pureed. Perfect. Now, for the flour, the restaurant actually uses a combination of 00 and semolina. You can do that. I'm going to just use 00. We'll start with 500 grams. Now, it's been a minute since we've made fresh pasta, so let's do a quick refresher. Flour in the center of the board, and we make a well, nice and deep. Pour in our egg mixture. And we use 2 tools, a fork and the bench scraper. We start with the fork. Slowly start to pull in flour from the sides. Slowly start hydrating the flour with our egg mixture. I'm gonna slowly pull from the wall while whisking until you kind of get to a thick, smooth, pancake-like consistency. And then I take my bench scraper and sort of get that flour underneath that mass, folding the flour and cutting it into that wet mixture, trying to get all that flour hydrated. And when you do this, you cut it and fold it, you get these kind of raggedy pieces, but that's good. That means it's at a stage that it's gonna start to be manageable with a hand. So then we can take the bench scraper, start to fold it onto itself and assess where we're at. I think we're gonna need a little bit of flour. I'm just gonna dust it, start to work it a little bit. I'm gonna start using the grandma method for kneading, which is the 2-hand method. Basically rolling it out, folding it onto itself, and repeating. Scrape all the flour and all the bits into the center, and then we're gonna just start to knead it. Now it's coming together. It's easy to knead, which is what I'm looking for. You're gonna do this for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're gonna let it rest. After one knead for like a few minutes, it's already got some bounce back to it. It's tacky, but not sticky. We can cut a square of plastic wrap. We're just gonna sort of pleat around it to create a nice tight wrap around our ball of dough. Then we're just gonna let it rest on the bench for 20-30 minutes. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I was actually one of the very first people to be able to cook with Gosney's original dome back in 2022. And what can I say? I've been completely infatuated with the thing ever since then. But with the new XL, this thing takes it all the way up a notch. A complete evolution of the first one. And as somebody who thinks wood-fired cooking is the most satisfying way to cook, being able to access this in your backyard is a literal dream come true. And honestly, shout out to Gosney for like making it look actually nice. One of the upgrades to the dome is this new screen right here. Right in the middle, I can monitor the ambient temperature of the dome. Over to the right, I've got the temperature of the stones. If I need to, I can add a thermometer here, monitor the temp of different meats over here, and then they even got a timer function. And one of the coolest things about this, an upgrade that I've got my eye on, over here there's a compartment where we could stick a thing called a wood-fired control kit, which will literally control airflow. So you can crank it up or dial it back, blow air right into the wood fire inside the oven to give you maximum control. What else is there to say about this thing? It's totally out of control awesome. And if you're anything like me, and the moment you laid eyes on this thing, you said you gotta have it, then check it out. Head on down to the link in my description. After 30 minutes, let's see how sticky it is. That's a tolerable amount of sticky. May just add a little bit more flour. Just need that little bit amount in for another 3 to 5 minutes. Get it back wrapped in plastic. Let it chill for about an hour or two, and then we can make our sheets. By now, our Bolognese should be ready. We can get it into a bowl. To that, we're just gonna add about 3 tablespoons cold unsalted butter. And we're gonna just fold that in. Let the residual heat of the sauce melt the butter in with like a handful of Parmigiano-Reggiano. One thing that Rollo's adds that I've never added to Bolognese is a little red wine vinegar. A little capful, mix that in. Touch of acidity is actually very nice. And there's your Bolognese. Next up, the bechamel, which is milk, nutmeg, and a roux made with flour and butter. We're gonna add 3 cups of milk, and to thicken 3 cups of milk, I follow a 1-1-1 rule. 1 tablespoon fat, 1 tablespoon starch to every 1 cup of liquid. Got a small pot on the stove. We're gonna add in our butter and allow it to melt. Once the butter's melted, we go ahead and add in the flour. And we wanna whisk that flour in, cook it for about 30 seconds while stirring, just to cook the rawness out of the flour. The lighter the roux, the more it'll thicken a sauce. Now we can start to slowly stream in the milk. Slow in the beginning, make sure there's no lumps or anything. Then you can start to gradually add more once the roux is sort of set. And we want to now bring it up to a boil to see where the thickening power is. See how it's thickened on the spoon? I'm just gonna lower the heat a little bit. Last step is to grate in just a touch of nutmeg. A little warmth goes a long way. Let's give it a little taste for salt. Needs some. That's ready to go. Get it off the heat. Now that's the right consistency. The right amount should be 2 cups rather than 3. Now we want to just run that through a strainer. So now we're ready to deal with our dough. Cut about 1/4 of the dough. Shape it into like a rectangle. We're just gonna even it out, create a nice shape to it. Then with a little flour down, because it's definitely wet, I can feel it, we're gonna need some. Then we're gonna start at 0, the widest opening. Dust it in that flour. Go through 1, then 2, then we're going to 3, then to 4. Now we're gonna be baking them in these 9x6 sheet trays, these little guys. So I wanna make sure we're at least 6 inches wide. It's actually at 5. So what I wanna do, cut them in half, and I'm just gonna roll it out a little wider. Then we're gonna measure 9 inches. You could still do it with these shorter ones, or you can save them for maltagliati or some other occasion. First, we gotta season that water generously with salt. Then we're gonna drop 1 or 2 of the lasagna sheets into the boiling water for no more than 30 seconds each. Then I'm gonna carefully fish them out, lay them flat on the towel to dry, and then we're gonna oil up each layer of the parchment paper, place the sheets on the parchment, and stack them, and that's how we're gonna store them overnight. The oil is just so nothing sticks. Our bechamel has cooled, and load it into a piping bag. I learned recently if you got enough space here, you just cut down the middle, and then you go, and you tie it up. That'll go in the fridge and fully set. And here we have the pasta sheets prepped and ready to go. It's been about an hour, so pretty confident in the temp that it's at. Burned off all of that factory stuff. I'm just gonna let it cool down for a minute. Chill. After it chills for about 30 minutes, then we're gonna crank the heat back up, then get it to our cooking temperature of 750 degrees. The dome is around 670 degrees. That's 70 degrees away from our final temp, which is when we can start to transition to wood. So now to transition, I'm gonna lower the propane. I'm gonna get some pieces of wood over here, create like one of these guys, and then we're just gonna push it in there. Once it's in place, we're gonna jack it back up. I'm gonna use the propane to basically light my wood. Might take a second, but any minute now, it's just gonna erupt. Now we can shut the propane off. Now, since it's lit, we can start to build. We can add a couple more off to the side. And our goal now is simply to achieve around 750 degrees, now though, powered by wood. So it's at 900, we're gonna let it cool down. Then if we need more flame for that wood fire, we're gonna add a little bit more wood then. Now we can prepare our lasagna. Now we're gonna take one sheet and place it on the board, and we're gonna take our bechamel in the piping bag, and we're gonna pipe it to fill up the center of the sheet, leaving about a couple-inch border around the edges. All of the contents will spread out as it cooks. On top of the bechamel, we're gonna just spoon some of the Bolognese right on top to cover it. And on top, a generous sprinkle of Parmigiano-Reggiano. Place a second pasta sheet on top, and then you kind of just want to scrunch it up so you get these like peaks and valleys that kind of have different textures when they cook. Now our sheet tray should be thoroughly preheated and hot. We can take it out of the oven. We just want to spread a light coating of oil along the entire surface of the pan, and then transfer our lasagna right on top. Again, give it one more scrunch just to give it a little bit more rugged texture, and then just a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Sprinkle a little bit more Parmigiano-Reggiano before we transfer it into the wood-fired oven. Now this is gonna cook at about 750 degrees for about 2 minutes. And our goal is to just, much like a regular pizza, is keep this rotating, moving around, making sure one side doesn't spend too much time too close to the fire before rotating it to get a nice even char. We're looking for the pasta sheets to crisp up, get a bit of spotty char around the surface. We can pull that out of the oven, and then we're gonna transfer it onto a plate. I'm gonna hit it with a little touch more nutmeg right on top, a little extra virgin olive oil, another sprinkle of fresh Parmesan, and finally a little flaky sea salt. I think we can dig in. You know, I went my whole life thinking the more layers in lasagna, the better. Turns out 2 sheets is all you need. Just much more crunch and spread out throughout the whole thing. Out of control. Even people in New York City, I would bet almost all of my money, are never going out all the way in Queens where this restaurant is. If that happens to be you and you want to try this, link's going to be down in the description. Also head on to the description if you're interested in the dome over here. Well, that's all I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself. Go feed yourself.